Hello and welcome everyone to the newest episode of the Backlot Banter Box Office Roundup Show. I'm your host Tanner Dykstra, joined as always by my good friend Tucker Hazel. We are here to engage in a little bit of box office ballyhoo for the month of October in the year of our Lord 2022. We have a great show lined up for you here today. Tucker, as always, has made a visually pleasing slideshow presentation for a bunch of movies that came out in the month of October, and we've rounded up some interesting facts, some tidbits for you, and if you stick around till the end, we'll do a preview of November, the month that we're already in, actually, but that's how the cookie crumbles, and our predictions for what the top 5 box office domestic openings for this month will be, but that'll all come in due time. Tucker, shall we roll right into it? But before we do that, I need to do some plugs, of course.
Of course.
If you want to
it's
talk box office with us...
If you don't do it, what's wrong with you? Do the
Exactly.
plugs.
Yeah, do the plugs. If you want to talk box office with us in real time, you can join the Discord. That link is in the description. You should also subscribe to Backlot Banter if you're not subscribed already. Why wouldn't you be? Naturally, it's the natural thing to do. Like this video, share this video with your friends. You know, if you have a buddy or a pal or a gal pal or anybody else who is a fan of box office things, that's what we do here.
Yeah, that's our job.
Yeah.
Not actually. We're not paid for this.
No. We do this out of the kindness of our hearts. For you.
For the good of humanity.
For the good of humanity.
Someone's got to do it. Might as well be us.
No one else does this, which is really interesting.
Totally original.
Okay. Let's roll right into it, shall we, Tucker?
Yeah, well, let's start where we always start this month and each month as we continue to do these into the future with the top 10 domestic openings of last month, which was October 2022. Number 1, no surprise, pretty much the only really successful film box office wise of this month was Black Adam at a 67,000 million. God,
67 million. Holy God.
Yeah, they really went up there. $67 million opening with a few thousands and other dollars above. This was, to be expected, maybe a little bit low for a big movie of this kind of budget and in the DC universe.
Yes.
But yeah, it was kind of the only thing that really opened to fanfare.
Yeah. Well, and we will of course be breaking down each of these in more detail as we go forward with the show. But Tucker, what was our number 2 finisher of the month?
Our number 2 was Halloween Ends, and these top 2 we pretty handily predicted because they're the only real franchise films that came out last month. Of course, that's what audiences flock to nowadays. But at $40 million, we'll get into some facts about Halloween Ends. This is an interesting one.
Yes. And then, we have some other, the rest of our top 5, which is Ticket to Paradise, which is, we talk about how audiences really only go out for blockbusters nowadays, but this made an impressive showing for the rom-com genre with $16.5 million. Then you had some family-friendly fare with Lyle Crocodile with $11.4 million, and for the month of October, we have our second horror movie of the top 5 here, Pray for the Devil with 7.1. Rounding out the rest of the top 10, of course, is Amsterdam, Till, Tar, Triangle of Sadness, and Terrifier 2. That's a lot of T's in that back half.
It is, yeah. And one thing you will notice of that bottom of that top 10 is that almost all of those are limited release films.
Yes.
Which is more so a commentary on there not being a lot of wide release films that did very well this past month. I mean, we're so used to having that top 10 be completely filled with wide releases with things people are excited for. And of course, we were excited for Tar and Till and Triangle of Sadness, but these movies released to to high acclaim but limited box office because they weren't in a ton of theaters. So not the strongest month in terms of performance.
No, absolutely not. I don't think it can be categorized in that way. But Tucker, you mentioned earlier that, we sort of predicted Black Adam and Halloween Ends as being the top 2 finishers of the month, rightly so, I might add. But we can now finally analyze our predictions from last time. And if we look over here, we had these same predictions, of course, for the month.
Yeah.
Black Adam.
So I was able to smoosh them together into one.
Yes. We got Black Adam number 1, Halloween Ends number 2, Pray for the Devil number 3, Lyle Crocodile at number 4, and Amsterdam at number 5. But that is unfortunately not exactly how it ended up shaking out here.
No.
It seems that we overestimated the crowd that would get out to Pray for the Devil for a Halloween horror movie release, and underestimated the power of Julia Roberts and George Clooney in a rom-com together again.
Yes.
And we'll get into the drawing power of them later on, of course. But do you have any meditations on our predictions versus the actuals here, Tucker?
I think I'm actually more pleased with the actuals than I was with our predictions. Like, I'm a little bit disheartened that I didn't get it exactly right, but it's for the better, because Ticket to Paradise is a much better movie than Pray for the Devil. It is certainly impressive that a simple rom-com of this type made it not only into the top 5 but the top 3. And we also overestimated the power of Amsterdam and the power of Pray for the Devil, and both of those not doing great, as we'll get to with each of their specific breakdowns, isn't the end of the world for me. But I'm proud of Ol Parker, I believe is the name of the director for Ticket to Paradise. I'm proud of him and his team for cracking into the top 3 domestic openings for this month.
Yeah. And I also, the courageous man that I am, I put out my specific number predictions, and I was on point with some of these and a little off with others. I was pretty on point with my Black Adam numbers prediction. I predicted 62 million, ended up making 67, of course. On the other hand, I predicted Amsterdam would make 14, when it in fact made less than half of that. So how about that? Oh, boy. Anyway,
you want to get started on our specific breakdowns for this month?
I think so, and I think we need to start with the most interesting box office-wise film of this month, and that is,
absolutely,
of all things,
maybe one of the most interesting of the year, frankly.
Terrifier 2.
Yep.
And what we've collected here is, of course, it's made a total of $7.9 million. 215,000 of that is international, so it has made a bulk of that, of course, domestically, because it is it started out as a quite limited release film, but has since been in a wider and wider market every week after that, and has continually made more and more money.
Yes, it has, and that's just incredibly rare. I mean, you think back to the era before all these movies are coming out, and only the biggest movies are making money. There wasn't a specific set of expectations that you open wide and it decreases from there. There were a lot more movies that opened in limited release and continued to grow their fan base and get word of mouth and grow the amount of money they were making each week, and that barely happens anymore. I mean, there are a couple instances of Everything Everywhere All at Once gaining some theaters and gaining money over the first few weeks of that being open. Top Gun Maverick having a big opening but then starting to climb in popularity as it was out there in the ether, and of course lasting for a very long time. But Terrifier 2 is not only the clearest and most impressive example of growing in theaters, growing in the amount of money it's making each week, but especially because this is one of the cheapest movies I've ever heard of theatrically released. With a budget of $250,000, I believe almost entirely or mostly crowdfunded. This is such an impressive opening and continuing to exist in theaters total for this film.
Yeah, if I can bring some numbers into this discussion about, it opening in wider and wider markets every week. It opened on October 7th in 770 theaters, a fairly common limited release sort of thing. Yeah. Then it actually went down to only 700 theaters in its second week. But made 28% more than it had in its opening week. Yes. And then what happened is there was this news story that circulated. I don't know who originally wrote it, but it was sort of copied over into a bunch of major publications about Terrifier 2. It's this movie, you got to kind of seek it out in the theater near you. It's in limited release, but it is making people vomit in the theater. It is making them faint in the theater. This is one of the most extreme movies of the year. And after that happened, it added 50 theaters, not very many, but then again rose 70% in its third week.
Wow.
Yes.
Impressive.
And then the week after that, of course, it added nearly 800 theaters and has risen by 8.5%. Yes.
Good gosh. Wow. So and it seems like it'll be sticking around. I mean, I kind of expected a film like this to, I mean, obviously most people expected a film like this to have a pretty quick drop-off. Horror movies open big and then drop, but this seems to only be growing, and of course that can't last forever, but it'll be interesting to see, not that we necessarily will cover it specifically next month, but how long it lasts into November, because it is continuing to grow and go up, and maybe it's since dropped, but that's really, really impressive.
Yeah, absolutely. Shall we move on
and just
to...
a side note, I watched this movie. I actually watched
yeah.
Terrifier and Terrifier 2, and I think 2 is leagues better than the first one.
Yeah.
The first one is solid, and I do think that Art the Clown in both Terrifier 1 and 2, and also another movie called All Hallows Eve, is probably the great horror slasher villain of the last 15 years. But I did like this movie quite a bit. It's too long for its own good, but Damien Leone is just the new Wes Craven, frankly. I really do think that if he continues to get bigger budgets and experiment with more things, Terrifier 3 is in the works, that he could be seen as one of the great horror auteurs of our time, because he not only directed this, but he edited it and he did all the special effects work, so like he's a mastermind of horror.
Yeah. And this is, of course, the only one that we'll talk about in specifics this time that I have not seen. So,
Oof,
but going into the one that I have seen and Tucker has not,
Yep.
we have something, a little more family-friendly, I would say.
It's a little different.
Lyle Crocodile has made, at this point, a box office total of $50 million, 51 to be exact, 18 international and 37 domestically. So a pretty solid showing from Lyle, I would say. It's still underperformed what everyone thought it was going to make. We're always sort of wondering what's going to get families into theaters. That's going to rack up some ticket
Terrifier
monies. 2. Yeah, Terrifier 2, of course, as we all know. But it did underperform. It's estimated 20 million opening, but has since made a solid name for itself, I would say.
It has, but I would honestly say I disagree with that, not only from the perspective of it being a family movie and those having much stronger legs than this movie has. Like, it does not fall into the camp of Minions Rise of Gru, or even DC League of Super Pets, which we were disappointed with, but did continue to stay in theaters and make money over time. Lyle has dropped off pretty quickly. It's sticking around a couple showings, at least in our market, but also with a $50 million budget and featuring name draws like Javier Bardem and Shawn Mendes, $50 million is, as its current total, means that it's lost the money. So I would not call it solid, frankly.
Okay. Fair point, Tucker. Fair point. But also, you haven't seen the pure wonder that Lyle Crocodile instills in its audience.
Haven't seen it myself. What about the wonder that Amsterdam inspired in its audience of like the 4 people that saw that movie? Because moving on Amsterdam, this is the flop of the month.
Yeah, it is a major flop, critically and box office-wise, of course, financially. A $24 million total thus far, $9 million internationally, $14 million domestically. And a domestic opening of $6 million. As I said earlier, I was anticipating something double that. And, Tucker, you're talking about Lyle Crocodile losing Sony some money. This is a big blow for Disney. Yep. It's estimated to be losing $97 million, nearly $100 million lost for Disney on this film, on production, marketing, talent, everything like that. Because this is a movie with all big names, quite frankly.
Yes.
And you got
we were talking about the draws for Lyle Crocodile having a couple of names and also trying to appeal to families. Amsterdam is a drama from an acclaimed director, an Oscar-winning director, with one of the craziest casts of the year. I'm just looking at it here: Christian Bale, Margot Robbie, John David Washington, Robert De Niro, Anya Taylor-Joy, Rami Malek, Chris Rock, Zoe Saldana, Mike Myers, Timothy Olyphant, Andrea Riseborough, Taylor Swift, Michael Shannon. Like, that almost never happens in terms of a cast that stacked, that deep. Of course, we are getting Dune was last year, Avengers Endgame. There's a lot of movies that have these big casts, but those also do well. This did not, with a 33% on Rotten Tomatoes, a B cinema score, and only $24 million total right now. It's gone from theaters where we live. I doubt it's showing almost anywhere anymore.
I think it'll be moving on to HBO Max here in a week or two.
Well, then I'll get a chance to catch it.
Yeah, there you go. But yeah, nothing much more to say about Amsterdam, other than the massive loss that it poses for the people
Yeah.
over at Disney here. Except for the fact that I did grab a bit of an interesting production tidbit that Margot Robbie apparently said that the police needed to stop them filming because their film permit expired. So the production on this was no doubt, going over budget and going over time a
Yeah,
little, it
yeah.
seems,
And
which
that's
probably
especially heightened
contributes.
by the COVID pandemic, which they had to stop filming, continue filming, figure things out. Like that contributes to that budget being higher than it should be anywhere near, which is unfortunate. I haven't seen this movie, so I don't know if I'd be like I'm like, oh man, I wish this was made more because I liked it, but everyone I know didn't like it, so that's not a good
Yeah.
track record.
All right, what do we got next? Oh, we have something that we have both seen, Tucker, and is universally loved across the board. It is Todd Field's Tar. As we are moving into award season here, this show is showing up to be a very strong contender for a bunch of awards. Has made $2.9 million total domestically. Actually, has not had an international release indicated yet. This was one of the limited releases that we were talking about that has since gotten a little bit wider every week since its release. But yeah, Tucker, what do you have to say about the showing of Tar here?
I don't know honestly what limited release films, what films intended pretty much solely for critical acclaim, for awards contention, what the performance of these kind of films is supposed to be, like expected to be, because we've just started covering the box office. We haven't been in box office mode during awards season before, but with $2.941 million, that's not great. That's not very high. Again, it still is only in limited. I don't think it'll ever crack wide. But I do think that it'll stick around as it gets more and more hype coming to the awards season early next year. But it is doing well where it matters and where its efforts are focused, which is 95% on Rotten Tomatoes is great. And the critical acclaim and everyone saying Kate Blanchett is, a front runner for one of the lead actresses of the year in all sorts of categories, with Todd Field's direction. This film is doing good where it wants to do good. And I don't think it really matters that this will probably lose them money, whatever studio this is from. Frankly, I can't remember. But the fact that it's going to get awards, going to get critical acclaim, that's what it was intended to do. So I'm happy with it.
Yeah, I don't know if any studio, at least, and this could be hopeful thinking as well. If any studio goes into making an awards film like this one's gonna make us money, this is gonna be a cash cow for us because it's low risk, low reward essentially is what we have here. And of course,
we don't know the budget for this film though.
No, we don't know what the budget for this film is. But
it's probably more than $3 million though.
Yeah, likely. But I can't imagine that the box office numbers has been helped out by the public disavowal of this film by famed composer Lydia Tarr, of whom the movie is about. So,
yeah, true.
She has some public sway. Let's not beat around the bush here. And her disavowal of this film, it might have hurt it in some way or another.
But the last thing that we want to mention is that this is Todd Field's first film since 2006, which is a break you almost never hear about in terms of a director. But not only that, because Todd Field, with almost every one of his movies, if not every one of his feature films, has gotten critical acclaim, has gotten Best Picture nominations, has won so many awards, and he just, he took a break for almost our entire lives so far.
Yeah, essentially.
And he's coming back strong. This is the first one of his films that you and I have seen, and we were very, very big fans of it.
Absolutely. Moving on, Tucker, we're getting out of the awards for now. Leave that in the dust. We got some good old fashioned slasher time fun here with Halloween Ends.
Yep.
Our second domestic opening winner of the month has made a total of $97 million, nearly $100 million. That's getting there. Might cross that line. Who's to say?
By this weekend, it absolutely will have.
Yeah.
100%.
We have an international total of 36 million, domestic total of 61, and mixed reviews, I would say. And these box office numbers are obviously no doubt helped out, as they often aren't, by a simultaneous streaming release on Peacock, everyone's favorite
Yeah.
streaming service that we all have.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. You say mixed reviews, I just say bad reviews. I mean,
Fair
you and
point.
I like this movie. Frankly, most of our friend group actually enjoyed this movie, but
Yeah.
we didn't love this movie.
No.
We thought it was a step down from Halloween 2018.
Yeah.
A step up from Halloween Kills. We
Yes.
both really disliked Halloween Kills. Almost everyone we know really disliked Halloween Kills. But while we like this movie, 39% on Rotten Tomatoes is bad. C+ Cinema Score is almost unheard of bad. And 5 on IMDb is mixed. It is right in the middle there,
Yeah.
but you don't want that.
No.
And the fact that it was on Peacock, we don't know how much of a win this is for Universal, because they say best first 2 days of any movie or show on Peacock. Who knows
Great.
what that means?
Yeah.
Also, not like there's much competition. We've
Nope.
only seen a handful of Peacock movies. Yeah, not good.
Bad stuff here. And if we are to correlate Terrifier 2 and Halloween Ends here, I think it's two sides of something that we like to talk about on the show, which is word of mouth and whether it
Yeah.
still is a viable option to get people in the theater. And I think that these two films show that it is. You have the obviously the news stories about Terrifier 2 really garnering it some praise and a wider release. And here you have an 80% drop in the second week for Halloween Ends. No
Yeah.
doubt because of the poor reviews that it's getting, the poor word of mouth that it's getting. Obviously, Halloween fans go into this expecting this is the end cap to the franchise that I love so much. I'm expecting lots of Michael Myers, and it's not that.
No, it's not.
It's
That's
not.
definitely the cinema score reflected there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that hearing that, if you're a general audience fan who hears that and you're like, I'm not going to go see that. I'll see it when it hits streaming, but it's already on streaming. But they don't know that because no one knows what Peacock is.
Nope.
But yeah, I think that
historically terrible second weekend drop with 80%. I don't know what the number one is, but this is the second biggest drop to open at number one ever. Which is, that's not a statistic that anyone wants to see. But for a franchise that has done well in the past, this is strange that it is so bad. I mean, Halloween Kills also didn't do very well. That one was also on a day and date with Peacock. But the one saving grace of this is that $100 million, probably by this point or by the end of the weekend, is still making the studio, Blumhouse and Universal, lots of money, because a $33 million budget is low. Blumhouse keeps their budgets low. This was higher, many times higher than Halloween 2018 and Halloween Kills. With down here you can see $10 million budget, $20 million budget, and now we're up to $33 million budget. And unfortunately, it's going to be the lowest performing of any of these movies, but also with the highest budget. But it's still making them money. So who's really complaining? I guess Halloween fans.
Yeah. It is a tale of diminishing returns for this new Halloween trilogy, of course.
Yep.
And I would say that's too bad, but it's like 1.5 for 3. So yeah,
Yeah, and also it's not gonna be the last time we see this franchise. I mean, the joke is that they continually bring it back. They reboot the franchise. We've had like 4 or 5 different timelines for the Halloween universe at this point. Just because this one's called Halloween Ends, it was touted as the end of the franchise, bringing things together. 1978 to 2022. Holy shit! Nah, no way in shit. This is the last one.
Yeah.
So they'll try again. Probably do better after a little bit of a break. But they need to figure it out, I guess, or maybe they don't because they keep doing it.
They make money. That's the thing
Yeah.
you're talking about, Tucker. Blumhouse is really a titan in the horror industry because they keep their budgets low and they make movies that make money, and that's really the bottom line in the film industry. So yeah. Speaking of things that make money, I guess here you cannot discount the box office power of George Clooney and Julia Roberts, especially not in Ticket to Paradise. A surprising like for us. We saw this after... What did we see this after? Oh, we saw this after Black Adam of all things.
Yes.
And yeah, we both enjoyed it, and it seems that the general audience is also enjoying this thing.
Yes.
$124 million a total thus far. 87 million international. Quite a good showing internationally, with
Yeah.
37 domestic. And
It did open a lot earlier internationally, like
Yes.
2 or 3 weeks before. So there was a lot of time for that $87 million to build up. Frankly, I think that the domestic total will catch up to that. Maybe not exactly, but I do see this film sticking around. It is pulling in an older audience who are more likely to not see a film on opening night, but to go on week 2, week 3, week 4, week 5, and keep the movie in theaters a little bit longer, making a more consistent money with smaller drop-offs than you see from blockbusters like Halloween Ends or Black Adam. And the only place that you look at this chart, this beautiful thing that I've made, the only place that this film is lacking is critically. 56% on Rotten Tomatoes, 6.4 on IMDb. Those aren't great numbers. In fact, they're mixed numbers. But it doesn't matter because audiences are liking it and it's making them money. And we enjoyed it. So, screw you critics, I guess.
I guess so. This is a populist film channel now. We are critics in some ways, but not in any way that counts, of course. But let's see here. Well, this is an original film, as rom-coms often are. The 5th highest opening for an original film of this year, behind some big hitters like Nope, Smile, and Don't Worry, Darling, but also a rom-com slash action comedy, The Lost City, which pairs Sandra Bullock and Channing Tatum. But even they cannot compare to the, as I said, the box office powerhouse that is Clooney and Roberts, as this film is the one that pushed them over $1 billion at the box office as a duo in films. This is on top of things like on top of Ocean's 11 and Ocean's 12, but also some smaller things like Confessions of a Dangerous Mind and Money Monster from just a couple years ago.
I've heard of Confessions of a Dangerous Mind.
Yeah.
I don't know what that is. I'm going to have to look that up.
Yeah. Well, it made $37 million, but yeah, the big two here are the Ocean's films, which has really cemented them as a duo, I think. And people love seeing them together. And guess what? So do I. Two very charismatic folks that I'm sure that maybe they'll be paired up again, since it shows that they still have some box office drawing power.
Absolutely. But you know who also has box office drawing power? The movie star of our day.
Who?
One Mr. Dwayne, in quotes, The Rock Johnson, who for most of our life at this point has been saying, Black Adam is my thing. I'm going to come in, I'm going to shake up what we know about superheroes. The hierarchy of power in the DC universe is going to be absolutely demolished. And the movie actually finally released, directed by Yom, as we call him. I don't actually know how you pronounce his real name. Yom Khaled Sarah, who also directed Dwayne Johnson in last year's Jungle Cruise. Black Adam has released to solid fanfare. Total of $254 million. The best opening of last month at 67. This movie is doing fine. It's doing fine for itself. It's not doing exceptionally. No. But guess what? It's going to be kneecapped because it has competition coming out in 1 week. Another black blank superhero movie, Black Panther, Wakanda Forever, is going to just eat this movie's lunch.
And Tucker, you talked about The Rock being a box office draw. This is the highest lead debut for him. It did beat things like Hobbs and Shaw, Jumanji, and San Andreas. It is the 5th highest box office opening for October of all time, which is a bit interesting.
That's a good statistic to put on your film.
Yeah, for sure. And then if you compare this to the rest of the DCEU, which it is, God, I mean, we all know that it's a mess over there, but it is a part of it, for better or worse. It's the 6th highest DCEU opening. As you can see there, I have them listed off in order down there. And, of course, a highly split Rotten Tomatoes. We were just talking about how, Tucker, this is a populist film channel, but I'm sorry, folks. Unlike the rest of you, we did not love Black Adam. We did not like that movie. And it seems that the critics agree with us, but the people, Tucker, the people love Black Adam.
They do. 90% of Rotten Tomatoes makes me kind of sad.
Yeah.
Because I think this movie's terrible. And frankly, as I was watching it, as I've sort of thought about it since, this is probably what people feel when they watch, that people who don't like Marvel movies feel when they watch like 3 or 4 Marvel movies a year, is a bunch of CGI horseshit, terrible jokes. I thought Black Adam was one of the worst superhero movies I've ever seen. We did an almost hour-long discussion about this movie. And 39% sounds much more right for me for this one.
Yeah, even we, on our Black Adam review, got a little bit of backlash from a few commenters about us not liking the movie, which is just kind of fun, I think.
Yeah.
Anyway,
you want a hard shift?
Yeah, a bit of hard.
Let's hard shift from Black Adam to Till.
Usually I try to find what's some sort of segue, but no segue here. We have another awards film, I guess. October being the doorstep of award season in many ways. We have Till which has made a total of nearly $4.5 million, all domestically, of course. No international release for this one because it did have this is another limited release film. I believe even started in a very small release back on October 7th, I think.
Really?
But yeah, and then 14th and the 21st and the 28th opened in wider and wider markets here. And as you can kind of see, it'll continue to do that. It is not releasing in the UK until January of next year. Yes. I think that's an interesting tactic here by Orion, I believe, is the distributor of this film, who they do a couple. They're not a huge name in film distribution, but I think it might be an interesting tactic to try and keep this in the conversation, keep new markets, new people seeing this film every month, every week, and I think it'll pay off, quite honestly. We talked about in our review Danielle Detweiler going to be a big presence in the lead actress race this year.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is, much like Tar, succeeding where it counts. I don't think this movie was expected to make a lot of money, but it's bringing in prestige with an A+ cinema score, which means that audiences who saw the trailer for Till and knew what they wanted from the movie Till got what they wanted from the movie Till. A+ is up there with The Woman King and some of the Avengers movies and Top Gun Maverick. This is a score that is barely touched. I mean, I think this probably adds it to like a list of somewhere in the 20s movies that have ever gotten this score. But high Rotten Tomatoes, and I was very happy with this film. We did our review with it. It's one of my award contenders for this year for sure. But I'll be interested to see this movie's box office performance over time, as it does have a very unique release schedule plan, because I don't know if this is going to really bring in a ton of money. It might stick around quietly for the next few months and then get boosted and maybe return to theaters in that award season rush. But it's not doing phenomenally.
No. And yeah, I think I just gotta return to that sort of thing where like when the studios make these movies, they are not anticipating these to be cash cows. But I think you bring up a good point, Tucker, with Tar and with Till again, that this will probably get a bit of a bump when it is inevitably redistributed around February or March for award season, once people get some more eyes and attention on it.
Yeah, and it's also one that I can foresee doing pretty well on streaming, because these kind of dramas are things that people like to watch, like to show to other people, and maybe not necessarily a crowd movie where you want to go to the theaters and sit next to people and hear them cry and experience this in a large environment. It's more of a private story, a private film where you can have your emotions come out. So maybe this will go on streaming before. I assume it'll go on streaming before, or it's certainly for rental before the award season rush.
Yeah.
But I'd like to come back to theaters and make some more money. But considering the fact that it will be on streaming and for rental before that, that might not happen.
Yeah. And finally, to round us out, feels like something that should have gone to streaming in the first place. It is Prey for the Devil. The one that we thought was gonna, make a stronger showing than it eventually did. It only made $13.5 million total. A very small international showing, $7.7 million domestic, and not a whole lot to say about Prey for the Devil. I think we brought it up in our review that it feels like something of a bygone era. This possession horror movie. It was originally
late aughts, early 2010s. This was a genre that was burgeoning and making a lot of money, like opening at number one, continuing down over the weeks, like way more money than you'd expect. But we don't know if this movie's doing well in any metric, because it's doing horrendously on CinemaScore and Rotten Tomatoes. 19% on Rotten Tomatoes. C+ CinemaScore. Again, getting in that C range is terrible. And with a lower than expected opening and continuing down the path of dropping off like horror movies do, we don't know the budget. So this movie might not even be making them that much money.
No, of course not. And Tucker, I feel like, we brought up when we were predicting this last time that, people are going to go out and see this for Halloween. People want to see a scary movie for Halloween weekend. But I feel like we failed to consider the flip side of that, which is that after Halloween, people aren't in the spooky mood anymore. They don't want to go. The horror movies might not be doing as well here as we begin November, and that is nowhere better exemplified than Pray for the Devil, I feel.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I don't have a whole lot else to say about this. The trivia and tidbits for this were pretty light on the internet as well. I found out it was announced in 2019 as The Devil's Light, and had some production woes before it was finally filmed in Bulgaria, of all places. No doubt trying to cut down on that production budget. That way is a mystery, apparently.
Yeah. Don't pray for the devil. No one will ever remember you.
Nope. Not once.
But there are some other movies that people will remember, which we want to talk quickly about some other miscellaneous limited releases with Park Chan-wook's Decision to Leave, Martin McDonagh's Banshees in Inisherin, and Ruben Östlund's Triangle of Sadness. 3 Oscar contenders here, 3 awards contenders that will be brought up in conversations going into the awards rush of next year. We have seen 2 of the 3 of these. I don't think that Decision to Leave has cracked our market yet, Tanner? You're more aware of that than I am.
I think it's near us at an Alamo Draft House, but it is on streaming. It was released on Mubi simultaneously. This is a Mubi touted film. I believe they are the production company for this one as well.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, good for them. That's
yes.
Interesting. I didn't know that was a thing, frankly.
Yeah. And of course, we have some Cannes Film Festival winners right here. Park Chan-wook won Best Director at the festival, and Triangle of Sadness won the big prize, the Palme d'Or, at the festival as well. Decision to Leave, I believe, has officially been announced as the official submission for South Korea for international feature at the Oscars. Triangle of Sadness has not been, interestingly. I was looking this up. All the countries attached to this thing, Sweden, Germany, and France, have all submitted different films for consideration. So will Triangle of Sadness have a large presence at the Oscars? Hard to say, I think.
Yeah, I'm not sure, but we did really enjoy it when we got a chance to see it, and we also really enjoyed Banshees in Inisherin, which our review went up for that yesterday, or 2 days ago as of the time you're seeing this. And so I'm happy with all of these. I would have to look a little more into their budgets and the histories of how much movies from these directors each make, but I'm sure everyone involved with these are happy with the critical acclaim that they're getting.
Yeah, I think so. And then, again, this is probably something that when award season rolls around, we might get some more attention, some more rolling out in theaters, especially for something like Banshees, maybe, for example.
Yeah.
And now that we're done talking about all those movies that have already come out, let's roll into the big headlines of the month. Interesting month. An assortment of headlines, I would say. And, excuse me. I say that we are done talking about movies that have already come out, but, of course, our top headline that we have here is that Top Gun Maverick has dropped out of the domestic top 10 after 21 weeks. And I believe now it has officially ended its theatrical run as well.
Yeah. Yeah, the Blu-ray is out.
Yep.
It has been on streaming for a little, or not on streaming, but for rental for a little bit. But dropping out of that domestic top 10 after 21 weeks is unheard of. I'm so proud of everyone involved. Tom Cruise, you get a pat on the back for me, which of course what he's been looking for all these weeks.
I think so too. And now we have lots of Marvel news, actually, surprisingly, this month. The biggest of which I think is that Harrison Ford has been cast to replace William Hurt in the role of Thunderbolt Ross in the upcoming films Thunderbolts and Captain America 4, which is interesting. Getting this a big name, Harrison Ford, obviously, who is actually older than William Hurt was when he unfortunately passed away. Was that last year? I don't know. Time is a construct, and I don't recall. But yeah, I mean, it makes me wonder if General Ross is going to be a big presence in the upcoming films. Perhaps we could get a Harrison Ford transforming into Red Hulk? That's wishful
Would be
thinking.
interesting.
Yes. But Tucker, this is in your realm, I would think, because this is we had some Silent Hill news, a good chunk of it, coming out all in one day. So could you explain to me what's going on with Silent Hill here?
No,
Oh,
because I haven't
okay.
played Silent Hill, and I haven't seen any of the movies. It's just interesting that we are getting another Silent Hill movie. I believe Return to Silent Hill, which is what the film is currently called, is going to be an adaptation of the story of Silent Hill 2. There have been two previous Silent Hill films, the original Silent Hill, which was directed by Christoph Gans, who's coming back for this sequel. But also there was Silent Hill Revelation 3D in 2012, directed by MJ Bassett, which I've seen a couple of her movies, but not that one. But yeah, this is just weird. It'll be interesting to see if this does well. Konami is really pushing Silent Hill to come back. The announcement of like 3 or 4 different games at the same time as the fact that they're making this movie. So there's a chance that they can synergize new fans coming in for these games or new fans coming in from seeing the movie to go play the game. So it could turn out pretty well for them. I'm interested to see a modern film adaptation of a story like this.
Yeah. And I say we got a lot of Marvel news happening. We also got, excuse me, some DC news as well. The biggest of which, I'm actually going to go a little bit out of order here, is that James Gunn and Peter Safran have been announced as the co-CEOs of the newly named DC Studios, which is interesting, which it sort of marks that maybe they're getting their poop in a group over there at Warner Brothers.
One can dream.
Yes.
One can dream.
This comes on top of announcements that Henry Cavill is officially returning as Superman in a Superman film that is in very early production, but also the fact that there is a sequel script for The Flash already written.
Yeah.
Which, based on what we know about the production of The Flash, seems a little bit counterintuitive, but
Yep.
I trust James Gunn. Peter Safran has been a producer on some of the more successful DC films, like Aquaman, for example. So I kind of got some faith in him now. I quite frankly. So
this is the most faith I've ever had in the DC universe.
Yeah.
My only concern with this comes from the fact that this is only for 4 years. I mean, I'm just really interested to see what kind of impact they can have in such a limited time. I mean, they can probably get the full productions of 3 or 4 movies done in that time period, unless they really want to double down and make more movies and release more movies than DC has been. But that is a very limited time for what, in my mind, should be like an extended plan to revitalize the DC universe and fix things going forward. Because you think about 4 years, which has already started, that clock is already ticking. We already have the full next year's slate planned out. And of course, they couldn't have been involved with those films because all of them are already done.
Yes.
But with Shazam, The Flash, and sequel to Aquaman, those movies are finished, and we will not be feeling the creative influence or true direction of what the DC's rebooted status will be for a year and a half, 2 years, and by that time, we're already 2 years into the 4 years, so how much impact can they really have?
That's a great question, Tucker, but here's why I have faith in them, and here's why I have faith that will get extended, because I feel like that 4 years
totally could get extended.
I think it certainly will be. I think this is a 4 years, like, we'll bring him on for a trial period, DC feel, maybe David Zaslav is like, we're dipping our toe a little bit, and they have faith that these guys can do it, but they don't want to say anything is a sure bet based on the track record. But here's what I would say, is that we have some surefire hits coming up in 2023. Shazam will probably do fine to good. Aquaman, the original, made $1 billion. Does it have a lasting memory in the public consciousness? We shall see, of course. But I think we have some successes coming up, of course. And then you have Joker Folie à Deux coming out, which will probably be a big hit again. So I think that things are stacking up in their favor, and depending on how much they can get into production, you're right. It's limited what they can do in 4 years, but that'll get extended just based on what DC has coming out. Some solid hit-making stuff coming out. Anyway, let's get back into something that's completely different. A sequel to the film Twister was announced. Twisters. Yeah, Tucker, have you seen Twister? You haven't seen Twister,
Nope.
have you? This is a Midwestern classic right here. You gotta see Twister. Tucker, based on my mother's love for the movie Twister and the movie Top Gun, I'm gonna say this one's the next billion-dollar movie.
I don't believe that to be true, but you know what? That's okay.
God, Tucker, there's gonna be two cows in this one.
What? What about two tornadoes?
There'll probably be two tornadoes. I think so.
Let's go.
Yeah. Oh, speaking of things that are gonna make $1 billion, obviously, we have a very strange announcement, the oddest announcement of this month, I would say,
Of maybe my life, frankly.
which is that the movie that everyone forgot came out, Father Stew, starring Mark Wahlberg. When did that come out? Is that early this year, or was that last year?
No, it was last year, wasn't it? We didn't see it.
Yeah. In any case,
I'm gathering some information.
That
No,
movie
it was this year.
No, that movie was rated R to many people's. I didn't know it was fucking rated R. Good God! But this is getting a PG-13 recut, and it is being redistributed come December. I don't know why. I don't know how. I don't know what's happening in the world, quite frankly, with this announcement.
Well, here's the thing: is it's actually not as peculiar, I think, as you're letting on, because this movie did do well in one very specific way. Is that it was up in the top 2 or 3 or 5 or something like that for Netflix's releases when it was added to Netflix just a couple weeks ago. So people are watching this movie. But I don't think it's the PG-13 audience that wants to see this movie. So I understand why they want to continue the Father Stew franchise. I mean, it's the same movie, just recut. But so peculiar that this movie is getting a re-edit. There was the only other time I can remember this happening was with a very Deadpool Christmas or whatever it was called when they recut Deadpool 2, I believe, to be PG-13. But this makes no sense from a financial angle because this probably won't make any money. It's not like now the audience that wanted to see Father Stew in theaters can suddenly see Father Stew in theaters. But the movie will probably continue to do fine on streaming. But I don't know if Father Stew Reborn will do well on streaming.
No, I don't think so. It's also notably coming out the week before Avatar comes out. So that's something.
So all the big screens that Father Stew Reborn was going to be seen on, no longer.
All those ultra screen 4DX screens, all those IMAX screens taken up by the greedy James Cameron. Can't believe it. All right, and we have a Marvel News rock block here. We had some cast announced for Agatha, Coven of Chaos. Those stars including Aubrey Plaza and Joe Locke. Kit Harington is also heavily rumored and expected to be joining the cast of that. Joe Locke and Kit Harington obviously, potentially, probably joining as Wiccan and Hulkling. So that'll be fun, I think. And Aubrey Plaza is playing a villainous role in the series apparently. So I'm all for that.
Yeah, that sounds great. And I do think that finally this cast is getting good news for this show. I mean, when this was announced, this was really the start of, do they really have to make a show for everyone? Because even some of the ones that narrative was built on before have been reversed. I mean, people were very happy with WandaVision and Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Those sets of characters who were side characters previously in the MCU have now become forefront mainstays. We will see if that's possible for characters like Agatha, who was a B-tier character of a B-tier character.
Yeah, let's see how deep the rabbit hole can go, I guess.
This will be the real test.
Yeah, how many nesting dolls
true because we've got Echo. Though Echo does have the boost of ostensibly being a Daredevil show as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, Aubrey Plaza and the stars of Heartstopper, which is a show I haven't seen but is very popular, will definitely put eyes on this. And now people are like, oh, hey, I'll watch Aubrey Plaza. And people who are into Heartstopper are like, I'll watch anything these little men are in. So there you go, Agatha Coven of Chaos.
Yeah. We also have Vision Quest in that same sort of line of thinking of WandaVision. This is announced, I think, is all we know, and will follow Vision in a story about Vision, probably. Yeah, it's something. It's certainly something, isn't it? In other casting news, of course, this time in movies and not Disney Plus streaming series, we have William Jackson Harper in Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. And I felt like making a note of this one because William Jackson Harper was heavily rumored to be taking on the role of Reed Richards, or Mr. Fantastic for the uninitiated, back over the summer, I believe, when these rumors were really hitting their fever pitch. And I think it's fairly likely, quite honestly. I think it's a solid shot that he is appearing in this film as Mr. Fantastic. Because I believe there was also speculation that this is where the Fantastic Four are. They're trapped in the quantum realm as opposed to being trapped in space or something like that. So I think I'm gonna give this a 7 out of 10 chance of being likely and of being true.
Well, part of it is true. He is in this movie.
Oh yeah, sure.
We don't know officially his role yet, but I don't think I've ever seen him in anything. If he's Reed Richards, fine. I'll have to see if I like his interpretation of the character in the movie. But that movie also did get a trailer this past month and got memed to shit for looking like a Spy Kids movie. But I'm still excited for it.
Yeah.
I do think, story-wise, I like those characters, even though the other two movies aren't my favorite MCU movies.
No.
This one does have potential with the crazy visuals of the quantum realm, with having Kang being present as the next big bad of the MCU. Bill Murray is in it. So I'm excited to see it, even if that trailer didn't get people the most excited.
Yeah. And in the last bit of our Marvel news for this month, we have some Wonder Man series casting. Yahya Abdul-Mateen II, I believe, is going to be taking on the role of Simon Williams, or Wonder Man. He's being joined by people such as MCU newcomer Bob Odenkirk, which will be fun to see, and some mainstays such as Ben Kingsley and someone who's introduced, well, a Marvel alumnus, I should say. Evan Peters is also going to be coming back for this. Wonder Man is obviously an actor turned superhero, or maybe the other way around, actually. I think he might be a superhero who becomes an actor. But no, that makes sense why Trevor Slattery and Ralph Boner would be coming back for this one.
And that's really exciting, the idea of them somehow framing this around acting, around some sort of comedic interpretation of this, and great talent here. I mean, Ben Kingsley was not only great in Iron Man 3, but he really got a resurgence when, he's great in other movies. He was in Gandhi, which won Best Picture. But for the modern audience, he is known as Trevor Slattery, and it's really cool to see him coming back. He'll probably also be in a Shang-Chi sequel of some kind. So let's see how these stories tie together.
Yeah, I think modern audiences largely know Ben Kingsley for that. What was that movie? Transparency? What's the one with Ryan Reynolds? What's the one? You know the one.
No,
Everyone knows the one. Where they swap bodies or something like that. Who's to say?
Really?
Yeah.
I never heard about that.
Oh no, they don't swap bodies. I think Ben Kingsley puts his mind in Ryan Reynolds. Maybe. Anyway, last bit of news here. Lupita Nyong'o will be starring in the new Quiet Place film, the Quiet Place spinoff called A Quiet Place Day One, which follows the early days of the alien invasion that causes the apocalypse in the Quiet Place series. And yeah, great talent to bring on board for A Quiet Place. I think there was an observation made that Lupita Nyong'o, aside from Black Panther and Star Wars, she isn't really getting the headlining movies that she deserves, and this is certainly an opportunity for her. Well, I say opportunity in that she's a great actress. Everyone recognizes that she's a great actress, but she has a surprisingly small filmography, I think.
Well, I mean, everyone loved her in Us. I think that's probably her favorite role of mine. But I do like the idea of her having a film to call her own in terms of her being the headline actress in it, because I like her so much. And Quiet Place spinoff, I believe I'd heard that this was happening, but I'm now much more interested in it, knowing that there's this kind of talent attached to it. But I don't even really know what the future of the Quiet Place universe is going to be, but a spinoff, why not? We'll see if this is actually successful.
Yes, and Tucker, I was trying to dig up the release date for this. Oh yeah, March 8th, 2024 is when this one is coming out.
Oh, there's one actually thing we don't have on here. I can add it, and then you guys will see it on there. But there's a new Godzilla movie coming out. Toho is doing a Godzilla movie that they announced the release date for, so that's pretty exciting. It's leaving behind Legendary's Godzilla universe. I believe the last movie Toho did for Godzilla was Shin Godzilla, which I think both you and I agree is the best Godzilla movie.
It's great. It's
ever.
really, really great.
God, I love that movie. So even if we get a tad bit of that, that's already better than Godzilla vs. Kong, Godzilla King of the Monsters. So we're on the right track.
Yeah, I think so. Exciting stuff all around. And finally, we have some exciting stuff coming down the pipe for November. We have some more limited releases, of course, but the big wide releases are also nothing to shake a stick at. We got, as you can see here, we got some big award stuff like The Fabelmans, The Sun, White Noise, and Bardo are both getting a limited theater release before releasing on Netflix, both of them, later, I believe both of them in December. And of course, you can't not acknowledge Black Panther: Wakanda Forever.
Yeah, I think this month actually is a really good lineup because not only do we have something for everyone, being Wakanda Forever and Strange World, which we'll see how that one does. But those being those big Disney get everyone in the seats movies. But there's also a really nice spread of movies that will be small in the limited release that will end up being awards contenders later on, but also like The Fabelmans and The Menu and She Said have potential to do pretty well at the box office. So there's this nice convergence of, these aren't only limited releases. They're going to be out there and they'll get awards and they'll make some money, which is nice. And weebs are happy with One Piece Film Red. People who like planes will be excited for Devotion, and little freaks like us will be excited for Bones and All.
Absolutely. It'll be interesting to see if the idea of maybe tricking the Top Gun audience into coming out for a Devotion works out with Glenn Powell and that. We will see. But Tucker, we do have our predictions for the top 5 performers of November at the domestic box office opening, of course. And they're largely similar. Again, we have one little difference that we'll get into. But do you want to start off talking a bit about your predictions here?
I think my predictions are pretty solid in that Wakanda Forever is clear number 1.
Yes.
For me, Strange World is the clear number 2. I know people are saying this is the forgotten Disney film. Oh man, where's all the marketing? We've been seeing trailers for this for a year now, and Disney movies have never flopped. I think people are really, that's probably not exactly true. I don't know the box office history of every Disney film, but in the modern era, each one that comes out is a box office smash. And even if it's not, there's not a lot of big domestic opening films that really could surpass this. So I think it'll do pretty well. And I have One Piece Film Red at number 3 because just looking at the track record of the other films that have anime films, they've almost always opened at number 1 of Demon Slayer and My Hero and Dragon Ball Superhero. I think this is just going to be on that list and over time, do pretty well.
Yeah.
And then The Menu and The Fabelmans. The only reason I have The Menu over The Fabelmans is that I believe The Fabelmans is opening smaller at first than The Menu, which is just opening wide right away. And also, The Menu has had trailers for much longer. And the stars in it are more box office draws than Seth Rogen and Michelle Williams and Paul Dano. They're great actors. They're probably better actors that I prefer than Anya Taylor-Joy and Nicholas Hoult. But even though Spielberg's attached to The Fabelmans, I don't think it's going to be the box office smash because we saw West Side Story categorically flop in terms of box office money last year. So we'll see.
Yep, and Tucker, mine aren't too different, of course. You have the clear winner, Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. I'm gonna stake a number down on this one, $212 million opening weekend.
Okay.
Right. Then I'm following it up with Strange World as well, a wide girth between these two. I'm predicting a $33 million opening for this.
No one's going to deny there's going to be a wide berth.
Yeah. A wide gap and a low opening for a Disney animated film for sure. And then I have The Menu at number 3, and I say it's unfounded confidence, and I don't really have anything to add on top of that. I just think that there's been strong marketing for this. I think this is an intriguing product for for general audiences. We've heard that the twist coming for this is something that you can't really predict from the trailers. Okay. And if that remains to be seen, people love movies that have twists like this. I think it can be comparable to something like a Barbarian, maybe.
Sure.
And it's got some big name actors, which Barbarian was maybe lacking, and of course, except the big star Justin Long is in that movie.
Yeah.
And then of course I have One Piece film Red here. And I have did I say 18 million for the menu?
Don't think you did, but there you go.
18 million for the menu. I have 16 million for One Piece film Red. Yep, you're right, Tucker. Big openings for these anime films. Weebs do be showing out at the box office here. And One Piece is one of the animes of all time.
Yes.
You know, I think no one can deny that. And finally, I am rounding it out with The Fabelmans at number 5 with $12 million. Very excited for most of these. Tucker, are we going to go see One Piece film Red?
It came out already. That came out yesterday.
It did come out yesterday, didn't it?
If we were gonna see it opening night, we already missed our chance. But I've actually never seen any One Piece, and I'm the more likely of the two of us to have seen some
Certainly
of it.
Are.
But I do think that I'm gonna swing back and catch you can watch these movies, even though I'm not fans of each of these anime. It might just be fun. The only anime films I've seen are Pokemon movies and the first My Hero movie. But maybe I'll become a slight One Piece fan. I don't want to dive myself into it, seeing how long it is. But, you know, a 92-hour, 45-minute movie might be a fun way to just dip our toes into this universe.
Yeah, we'll see. We will see. Tucker, why don't you watch all of One Piece and then report back in the next episode of this show.
Okay.
Next month.
All right.
And folks, I want you to report back next month when we do our breakdown of November of all these movies and more. We got lots of other ones, as you saw on the previous slide there. Lots of interesting stuff. Let us know your predictions for the top 5 box office domestic openings for November. Let us know your thoughts on any of the movies that came out in October that we talked about. We'd be happy to read and respond to those. Of course, as I mentioned at the top, join that Discord. You can keep up with us there. Talk about movies with us. Talk about anime with us. Talk about anime with one of us, I should say. Tucker, as you know, he's the big anime fan. He watches all the animes, of course. And I think that's it, folks. Thank you for tuning in. We will see you next time.